I watched 48 movies in January, and I'm going to talk about every single one of them right now, starting with The Boogeyman. This movie was pretty okay. I watched it because of Sophie Thatcher, and she was good enough in it. 2.5 stars. Next, that same day, I watched Last Straw, which was a good action kind of thriller, I guess you could say. It had some interesting twists and turns, but none of the characters were likable at all, which is kind of the point of the movie, but that sometimes takes me out of it. Next, Torture Garden is a anthology horror. It has Burgess Meredith in it, Jack Palance. It was good. It was good. 3 stars. Bloody New Year is a very odd movie. I have it on an Indicator Blu-ray. With Indicator Blu-rays, I'll just buy them. Like whenever they have that, they have a 3 for $20. I think I have all the ones that have ever been marked 3 for $20. I have a huge collection of these things. Bloody New Year is not a great movie though. It's a really cool premise where these people go to an island where there was nuclear testing that causes a little bit of a time travel situation. It just doesn't like come together. There's a lot of odd things that happen in it, but the pacing makes it kind of tough to get through. Still, I thought 2.5 stars, kind of middle of the road, and I'm going to keep it in my collection. Next, we have Wait Until Dark with Audrey Hepburn. She plays a blind woman who has this. She has a doll that has drugs in it, and the dudes who were selling the drugs want it back. So that's basically it. The whole thing takes place inside the apartment, and it's a really good thriller. I gave it 3.5, and I have that in my collection, and I'm going to hold on to it. Next, Can Ellen Be Saved was a made-for-TV movie from 1974. It was pretty good. I gave it 3 stars. Maybe that's a little generous, but it's about this young lady who goes and joins a Christian cult. And the ending of the movie is just weird and pretty provocative, I guess you could say. Skylines. Now, this is the third movie of the Skyline trilogy, and unfortunately, I didn't realize that until we started watching it. And I had this on DVD. In fact, it's right next to me. I bought this at Hamilton Book, and I didn't know what it was. I just bought it because it was cheap. It was a blind buy. Watched it, loved it, but then right in the beginning of the movie, you get a recap of the first 2 movies, and I was like, oh shit, like we're about to just watch the third movie, but we went with it. We just watched it anyway. But I absolutely loved it, and the reason this DVD is here is because I upgraded to a Blu-ray, and as you'll see, I went back and watched the rest of the trilogy. But I'll just say, the Skyline trilogy is a favorite in this household now. Next, Sicario, a rewatch of Sicario. I gave it 4.5. Yeah, 4.5. I don't know what keeps it from being a 5. I've seen it a bunch of times. It fucking kicks ass. Sicario is a great movie. City Streets was a good one. That is Gary Cooper plays a carny whose girlfriend is in a organized crime situation, and she wants him to get into the life with her, right? And he doesn't want to until she gets arrested. So he kind of joins up and climbs the ranks all the way up. So it's pretty cool. Almost like Scarface style movie from 1931. I rated it pretty highly at 3.5. Next, we have Possession. This is not the one that everybody talks about, but this is a movie called Possession from 2009 starring Sarah Michelle Gellar. The reason I have this is because my wife got me a bunch of Blu-rays and DVDs starring Sarah Michelle Gellar for Christmas. It was kind of a theme that she had going, which I certainly don't have a problem with. This movie was kind of weird. It has a plot where you don't know if it's supernatural or not, but once you figure out whether or not it is, it becomes kind of lame, I guess you could say. But to watch Sarah Michelle Gellar is always a treat. And then the next day, I watched The Possession that everybody talks about, the one from 1981. I like this movie. I don't know if I ever want to see it again, but I love how weird it is. I love how odd. I don't know what other synonyms are there besides odd and weird. It's a little bit traumatic, but I think what has sat with me since I watched it is just how strange of a movie it is. And I like that it's, I've done a little bit of reading on it, and then it's kind of an allegory for communism, which I always have found interesting. I find Cold War era stuff very interesting. So from that vantage point, it was kind of neat. I don't know if I ever want to rewatch it, and I probably rated it higher than I actually enjoyed it, if that makes sense. Next, Savage Streets. This stars Linda Blair, and it's kind of an exploitation film. It's a really nasty movie, but it was pretty awesome. I loved Linda Blair in this. There's a couple other notable actors and actresses whose names I can't remember right now, but I give this a 4 out of 5. I really liked it, despite being like really seedy and nasty. Phoenix Forgotten, another rewatch of this. This is one of my favorite movies that I saw last year for the first time, and it's one of those movies, as soon as I saw it, I bought the Blu-ray because I loved it so much, and I've watched it a few times since then. Not sure what it's going to take to edge it over a 4-star rating. Apparently, every time I watch it, I decide to keep that rating, despite it being one of my favorites. Sometimes you just got to be honest and say that even though it's your favorite, doesn't mean it's a perfect 5-star film, a 5 out of 5. Next, I watched Wings, which is a really interesting case for me because I'm not super into silent films, despite my love of classic Hollywood. I like Clara Bow. I've seen Call Her Savage before, and I'm due for a rewatch of that because that movie's just wild and I want to watch it again. But Wings is a really cool movie. I put it off because it's 2.5 hours long, and for a silent film, that a 2.5 hour movie is intimidating from the jump, but that it's a silent film made me kind of avoid it for a while. But it's great. It's actually great. There's some making of documentaries on the Blu-ray, and it's interesting to see how the movie was made. It's about World War I fighter pilots, which is at a time, World War I aviation technology was very primitive, and there's some cool documentaries on the Blu-ray about that, and how the director had the actors just learn how to fly planes. Like, a lot of the stunts are actually really done by the actors, and Clara Bow is amazing in it, even though she's kind of a little bit too helpless in a lot of the situations and is just kind of there. Doesn't have a ton of agency, but great freaking movie. America Lost and Found, which doesn't even have an icon or a cover on IMDb or Letterboxd here, is a made-for-TV documentary that was made in 1979 that is about the Great Depression, and I thought it was good. It didn't have a strong political bent either way, which I think that made it a little bit more enjoyable. It was kind of nostalgic in weird ways because it's made in the 70s and it's about the 1920s and 30s, so it was an interesting watch. Next, The Burbs, a Joe Dante comedy with Tom Hanks and Corey Feldman. I liked it. I didn't love it. This was given to me by my friend Steven on Blu-ray. I'm going to keep the Blu-ray. I think Joe Dante doesn't really do it for me besides Gremlins, so I don't know. Maybe I need to watch more, but every movie I watch by him is just kind of middle of the road for me. I didn't hate it, but and Carrie Fisher is awesome in this too. This is good for nostalgia. Immaculate from last year. Sydney Sweeney, I am not a huge fan. I usually just kind of avoid her stuff. I think she is gorgeous. There's a lot of controversy on film Twitter about, people call her mid, and the people calling her mid are probably worse than mid themselves or something like that. Like, why would you criticize such a gorgeous woman? And I think it's because she's not that great of an actress. I haven't seen Euphoria, but every movie I've seen her in, she seems like not very charismatic. So hopefully that doesn't get me in trouble if the right or wrong people see this video. But I thought this movie was just fine. It was not, I agree with everyone who says it's not as good as The First Omen, which I watched a couple months ago, but I wanted to see it so I can compare for myself. The Northman, Robert Eggers. I actually blind bought this movie on Blu-ray because I was confident that I would like it. So not technically a blind buy because I knew what I was getting into, but I figured I'm going to like this movie, and I certainly did. I actually watched it twice because there's a commentary on the Blu-ray. But still, I'm sticking with 3.5 stars on that one. Happy Death Day to You, another 3.5 star movie. I love this series, and I think it's great that it's like this kind of quirky sci-fi horror movie. There's not enough stuff like this out there, and I love that the first movie is just like a Groundhog Day time loop slasher, and the second movie is like a sci-fi comedy. I love it. Just keep that kind of stuff coming. Flamingo Road is a Joan Crawford movie, 1949. I liked it, I guess. I gave it 3.5, which is a pretty high rating. It's a drama about a woman who comes through town in a carnival. I wonder if she's in the same carnival as Gary Cooper from the movie I talked about earlier. That would be funny. They're in the same universe. And the sheriff doesn't like her, so he tries to run her out of town, and there's a lot of dramatic things that go on from there. It was pretty good. Not nearly as good as Mildred Pierce, but it was during that like kind of era when she was doing these dramas. Sancho the Bailiff is a Japanese film from 1954, 3.5 stars, which is probably a little bit generous. I didn't really gel with the like mission of this movie. Like, it's about these it's set in feudal, and I don't know what era of Japan it is off the top of my head. I don't remember, but it's about this young man whose family gets kind of exiled because their father did something that wasn't cool, and then they become slaves. So the son of the family decides to kind of climb the ranks, and there's not even climb the ranks, but he escapes and then gets awarded a governorship because of circumstances that involved his father. So then he decides to make slavery illegal, and that's very controversial. So a good movie, and I want to rewatch it with the commentary track that's on the Criterion Blu-ray, but I don't know. I liked it a lot as a film, but I didn't like feel that like the message of the movie like just sat in my heart. Like, so like, yeah, we know slavery is not good. Joan of Arc, this is the F.W. Murnau short film. I like anything with Joan of Arc, and to see something historical like this, it's only a couple minutes. I debated to even log this as a watch on Letterboxd. I watched it on YouTube on a break from work, but I thought it was great. Next is a big classic, A Fistful of Dollars. I have never seen any of these older Clint Eastwood spaghetti westerns. It's just a kind of a blind spot in my film tastes. So this was a good one, and I really, really enjoyed it. I was going to watch A Few Dollars More recently, but I haven't. And I have The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly on DVD. But yeah, this is the only one I've seen so far. I really like it. Blue City, it was an odd movie with Judd Nelson and Ali Sheedy. And from what I can gather, this movie came out at a time where there was fatigue of the Brat Pack, and the Brat Pack were a little bit overexposed. People were kind of getting sick of them. So this movie doesn't have greatest reputation, but I didn't think it was that bad. It's set in Blue City, Florida, where Judd Nelson comes home to find out his father's been murdered, and he wants to solve the mystery of who killed his father. Goes in some wacky turns, but again, sometimes nostalgia, and I've never seen this movie before, but when I say nostalgia, like just seeing that era from back in the 80s, in this case, or 80s and 90s, can really lift a movie for me. Next, Track the Man Down. This was a weird noir from 1955. It was a little shaky on the story, a little implausible. A lot of film noirs are, especially later ones like this. This isn't exactly from the golden era of film noir. Having said that, I have it on Blu-ray and I'm going to keep it in the collection. Next is The Gift. I watched this because of Katie Holmes being in it and showing a little skin. I'll be completely honest about that. But it turned out it was a very good movie, directed by Sam Raimi, starring Kate Blanchett and Keanu Reeves playing a definitely off-type role. So I came for some TNA and I stayed for what was a very good movie. Lone Wolf and Cub, Sword of Vengeance is the first Lone Wolf and Cub movie. I've seen the second one, but then I, not realizing it was the second in the series, tracked down the Criterion Blu-ray box set, and I've set out to watch the whole series, and this was the first one. This is really good. Like, it's an adaptation of a manga, and it's really good. There's great sword fighting action, and again, a lot of TNA if you're into that kind of stuff. Really good flick. The Sharkensaw Women's Prison Massacre is an absolute cinematic masterpiece. No, it was a weird, not weird, it was just a goofy, low rent shark movie. My wife and I like watching these, and this one had Tracy Lords in it, which is funny because she plays a cop who has almost nothing to do with the movie. There's just this plot where Tracy Lords and her partner are trying to track down these women who have broken out of prison, and they don't do anything except like follow seemingly unsubstantial clues to just appear at the end of the movie on the scene. And it was silly. It was a good, silly movie. I knew it would be bad, and it was bad. Not so bad it's a masterpiece, but it was exactly what I thought it was going to be. Next, The Furies, starring Barbara Stanwyck. I have this one in my collection from the Blu-ray, Criterion Blu-ray. I didn't love this movie. I recognize why it's good, why it's considered to be a good movie, but I didn't like the main character. I think his name is TC, and the point of it is that he's this larger than life person, but I found him to be extremely annoying and not, like anytime he was on the screen, I didn't like him as a character. And he's meant to be kind of unlikable, but not the way he rubbed me the wrong way, I think. So I gave it a 3, and I'm not sure if I want to keep it in the collection, but I love Barbara Stanwyck so much that I might give it another chance, maybe a couple of years down the road here. Next is the original Skyline. Not the best movie of the trilogy. It's actually the worst movie of the trilogy. They really pick it up from the second movie. And now I'm a completionist. When there's a trilogy, I want to see all the movies. Godfather, for example, everybody says you can skip Godfather 3, but why would you? I want to see it. I want to see what the talk is about, So I'm tempted to say you can skip Skyline and just go for Beyond Skyline, which is the second movie. But why would you do that? Just watch the whole freaking trilogy so you get the whole experience. Next, we have UFO Abduction, also known sometimes as the McPherson Tape. And boy, did I love this. I thought I would like it, but I wasn't sure. but it's only an hour long, and this is the original one, not the TV remake. And I think it's really well done, really well acted. And while it doesn't quite live up to the Blair Witch Project, it came out a long time before the Blair Witch Project. And this movie has an interesting history where it was circulated in UFO circles, like UFO hobbyist people who are, amateur investigators. This went around the scene and people thought it was real for a long time. So very cool movie, and there is a Blu-ray of it, and I do want to get my hands on that because there's some features on there I want to check out. But I really like this, and I watched it on my CRT TV to get the full effect. And yeah, the alien stuff and UFO stuff scares the shit out of me, even if I know that it's just three little girls in costumes. Next, the Sonata. My scrolling is a little off center here, but the Sonata I watched on a Blu-ray that I bought from Hamilton Book. And Hamilton Book is a website that has a lot of just weird horror Blu-rays for $3 and $4. And you'll see another one up here later that wasn't as good as this one, the Sonata. It's a cool movie. It has Rutger Hauer in it in a very small role, but the main character is a violinist who finds out that her father, or she knows her father was a kind of a infamous recluse of a composer, but he was considered a genius by many people. But she hides this from her manager because she wants to get by on her own talent and not because she's this guy's daughter. So she, when he dies, she inherits his estate, and they find out that he was working on a sonata that may or may not be cursed and may or may not be used to summon evil spirits. But I thought it was pretty cool, and I gave it 2.5, kind of middle of the road, staying in the collection. I might watch it again in a couple years. One of the things that was on this Blu-ray, though, was a trailer for a movie called Darling from 2015. And upon seeing this trailer, I said, wow, I got to see who this babe is, who turned out to be Lauren Ashley Carter. And as you'll see, I made it kind of my mission to watch as many Lauren Ashley Carter movies as I could. But Darling was pretty good. It's kind of a homage to movies like Rosemary's Baby. So it's in black and white. It's set in New York. And even though it's set in the modern day, the costumes are, and that even Lauren Ashley Carter's hairstyle is kind of tuned to look like it's the 1960s. So it was a pretty good movie, but there was a lot of, I don't know how to explain like my issues that I had with it. I might have to watch it again sometime, but it definitely just made me fall in love with Lauren Ashley Carter, who I'll talk about more in a second here. Next, Reunion was a movie from 2020 that I have on Blu-ray, another Hamilton Book, kind of blind buy. 3 stars, nothing great. It's kind of some good weird stuff here. I don't think the ending, I don't think it really stuck the ending, but not much more to say on that one. The Invoking, I hated to give this one 2 stars, but this one was kind of really like micro budget. And the acting, some of the acting was really good, but just the way it was shot and everything, like it's just an ultra low budget. But you know what? I'm going to give it an extra half star right here, just because good effort, guys. And the story was very interesting. It's about this young lady who, again, inherits a farm, and there's a caretaker on there, and she slowly starts to realize that she does have memories of being there, when at first she thought she was just inheriting this farm and knew nothing about it from her family. But yeah, it's interesting. So I'm bumping up bumping them up a half star here live on the air. Next is Pod, another Lauren Ashley Carter movie. And if I were to recommend one of these several Lauren Ashley Carter movies that I saw to check her out, it would be Pod. This movie is kind of an alien conspiracy movie, and she plays this kind of strung out drug addict who goes with her brother to check on their other brother, who I forget what prompts them to do that, but they drive from, I believe, New York to Florida up to New York or the Northeast, I can't remember, to check on their brother, and he's having some issues, and it just kind of descends from there. And one of the things I love about Lauren Ashley Carter, beside the fact that she is a doe-eyed beauty and very easy on the eyes, is that she's also a great actress and is total scream queen, and is just very emotive and can really put out some good screams, like for like a sci-fi horror for this, like this, or a straight up horror slasher like Darling. Good stuff. Next, the last horror film. This is the kind of the unofficial sequel to Maniac, from 1982. I think this movie might have been considered almost lost at a certain point. The rip I was watching had parts that were inserted that were like incomplete or really bad scans. So I'm not sure of the whole like history with this movie, but I did like it. I like the twists and turns that it took, and it has some very interesting footage from that era. So again, the nostalgia and the like time machine aspect of watching movies was really strong with this one. Distress Signals was a really interesting documentary about TV and how TV is sold to other countries in the world. And this was, you can see it's from 1991. It's from a time when TV was more prevalent, like network TV was more prevalent. So it's about how the US kind of undercut other countries to get our media into those countries, because they would kind of lowball selling our shows to these countries where it was cheaper to import American TV than to make your own TV that is more culturally relevant to your own country. Instead, you're getting bargain basement American TV. It's pretty interesting. Nosferatu. As you can see, I gave it 3 stars here. I think it was very good, but I think I agreed. I saw somebody on Letterboxd. They said this needed to be, wow, what did they say? I forget the way they put it, but they just said it needed to be more raw, and it was just such a straight up remake of the original, and I found it hard to like kind of cling on and care for any of these characters. And I think Lily Rose Depp did a great job here, but when I found out that it was originally supposed to be Anya Taylor-Joy, who I'm a massive fan of, I hate knowing that, but because I can't help but think of what might have been. The Gold Rush. This is Charlie Chaplin. For a minute I was like, what is this? 1925 silent film. I gave it 3 stars. The only other Charlie Chaplin I've seen so far is City Lights. City Lights, I can't remember what I gave it, but that movie is amazing. The Gold Rush has some really funny, really heartfelt scenes. I totally recommend watching the movie, but for some reason I gave it 3. It just didn't really hit me in the feels the way City Lights did. A Wounded Fawn is probably my top movie that I watched this month. I really enjoyed this movie. It is a twist on a serial killer movie, much like Strange Darling. I really would recommend going in blind. In fact, I think a double feature between Strange Darling and A Wounded Fawn would be really cool. Just make sure you go into both of them blind and enjoy yourself. This is one that, as soon as I got done watching it, I ordered the Blu-ray because I wanted it in my collection. 4 stars, and if I watch it again, it'll probably go up. The Mind's Eye, another Lauren Ashley Carter movie that was kind of it's a sci-fi action movie with a lot of really good gore effects, where these two lovers are like psychic and they can use telekinesis to like kind of F with their enemies. And it's very gory, very actiony, and I probably would have rated it a 3 if anybody else was in it, but Lauren Ashley Carter kind of pushes that rating up. Beyond Skyline is the second movie in the Skyline trilogy, and it kicks ass. It was so good. Again, I've kind of talked about this a lot. Skyline, by the way, I didn't talk about the plot. It's an alien invasion kind of situation, but the aliens, there's added layers of complexity because the aliens abduct humans, take out their brains, and make the brains drive these alien kind of like humanoid vehicles that are, you know, really tall and hulking. And so there's these big alien things running around, but they're controlled by human brains. So there's a way to kind of hack them so they become human again. And that all plays out throughout the trilogy. But again, this is one of the most underrated, like, I can't believe I never heard of this because it's so freaking good. And everybody says, oh, it's kind of wacky and goes all over the place. And it's like, yeah, that's what I love about it. Like, that's why it's awesome. Next is 1,000 Cuts. This one kind of sucked, I hate to say. It plays like a Lifetime movie. It's about this guy who goes after a Hollywood director who kind of is known for making torture porn type movies called 1,000 Cuts. And he blames this guy for a copycat murder where his daughter was killed. And the murderers like emulated the movie 1,000 Cuts. So he goes after the director of the movie, and it's right on that face of it. I thought that's a stupid premise, and you may as well, as I'm telling you this. But what makes it even worse is that it's filmed like a Lifetime movie, and as one Letterboxd reviewer put it, I don't know who I'm supposed to be rooting for here, but I think that's like the least of its problems. We're getting close to the end here because I just watched The Best Years of Our Lives on an airplane on a business trip that I took this week. And I have been wanting to see this movie for a long time because Frederick March and Myrna Loy are in it, and I'm a big fan of both of theirs. And the reason I haven't watched it so far is because it's 3 hours long. And no matter what the movie is, 3 hours is a long time commitment unless you're on a 3 hour long plane flight. So I loaded this movie onto my tablet and watched it on the plane. I was crying on the plane. This movie is so good. It is about these 3 men who come back from World War II, and they become friends with each other, and it's just about their different situations and how their lives intersect and come together after they're back home. They stay friends and all this stuff. And the kind of show stealer is the character Homer, and I forget the actor who played him. Not kind of in my wheelhouse, this particular actor. And I don't know if he was in anything else because it appears that he actually had his arms blown off or removed. I probably should have looked up his history, but his character has hooks for arms as a injury from the war, and he at first doesn't seem to struggle that much. He's really a prodigy with these hooks, and he's, you know, lighting cigarettes with them and saying, nah, don't worry, you know, don't get that light for me, I got it, they trained me how to use these things. But then there are challenges that he faces, and he puts on this strong facade. But when he sees his love interest, she's, he kind of goes into a shell because he can't, in the movie it's quoted like he can't caress her hair lovingly, and then the ending is what had me tearing up. And you know what, I'm actually not going to spoil it, because if I talk about it I will start crying, and you should really watch this movie. Double Wedding is a another Myrna Loy movie with what's his name? The guy that she always acts with from The Thin Man, William Powell. And I loved this movie. It was very funny. Not as good as a Thin Man movie, but what more could you ask for when you got Powell and Myrna Loy in a movie? Just watch it. No point in describing the plot. You can almost tell what it is from the title, but it was really good. And then on the plane ride back from my business trip, I watched The Great War of Archimedes, which is Takashi Yamazaki, the director of Godzilla Minus One. This is the movie that he made before Godzilla Minus One. And it almost reads like a prequel of Godzilla Minus One, because it's about a shipbuilder, like a prodigy mathematician that gets drafted by the Japanese Imperial Navy, Army, I don't remember, to help build a ship. But he discovers that there's some kind of shenanigans going on with the bookkeeping of the ship being built, and he's being kind of stonewalled in getting the materials that he needs to draft up the ship. It's a very interesting movie, and I rated it pretty highly, but I have, to be honest, no intention of ever rewatching it, because it just made me wish I was watching Godzilla Minus One. But it is good. Next, Jugface, which is as of now the last Lauren Ashley Carter movie that I have watched. I like this one. It was rather seedy and strange, and Lauren Ashley Carter was amazing in it. This one is about a kind of backwoods clan of people who have this pit that they have to make a sacrifice to the pit every so often to ward off diseases from their clan. They know who to sacrifice because they have a potter who divines these jugs that have people's faces on it. So if your jug comes out and your face is on it, you're getting sacrificed. So Lauren Ashley Carter plays a character who discovers that her ticket is up next, so she tries to change her fate by hiding the jug, and the stuff just goes from there. This, like Savage Streets, which I mentioned before, is very seedy, a lot of taboo subjects are covered, but it didn't really put me off the movie. I actually enjoyed it quite a bit. So, and that's it for January. I appreciate if you stuck around and listened to me babble on about movies. I'm going to try and do this monthly, and I would love if you are interested to follow me on Letterboxd. I don't usually review in writing the movies on Letterboxd, but I'm thinking about starting. But if you want to see what I watch and just my star ratings on them, that would be awesome. And let me know, have you seen any of these movies? And, tell me, based on what I like here, what else should I watch? Because I'm on a streak now. It's not going to last forever. I'm going to get sick of watching movies eventually, but I've watched at least one movie a day for several months now. And I get on these streaks every once in a while. Probably when it becomes more springtime, I won't spend so much time indoors watching movies, but this is what I'm on now. This is my hyper fixation. So thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you on the next video.